Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Q&A. So as always, it's the Q&A. You can leave questions and things in the description of the video. In general, I prefer things that are a little bit more kind of, wide topics, abstract, kind of discussion point style questions. But really, I'll take anything. So yeah, just throw them on down there. And yeah, it'll all be good. So the videos for the next 1 or 2 days may be a little bit, well, not new and shiny. In a way, don't worry, there will be stuff, it's just that I'm currently setting up with a new house. I'm not moving up there completely, but I need to get rooms sorted and do all that fun bullshit. So yeah, I've got to kind of commute to Belfast every day in a train. I mean, I could drive, but I couldn't be bothered. I'd rather just watch a movie in the train. It's all the same to me. Anyway, so let's get on with these questions. Now, the very first one is from Andrew Pant Shirt. What the hell is a pant shirt? It's like pants and a shirt? I don't even know. But more importantly, his question is, do you think we will be building up our faction hubs on Ashran through resource gathering and questing, sort of like what they did with MoP with the Isle of Thunder? And the answer to that is no, sir. No, we will not. In fact, this has been confirmed by Bashiok on Twitter. Bashiok basically just said, listen, you're going to have your faction hub for Warlords of Draenor, and at the end of the day, if patch, let's just say 6.2 is coming, what do you think it makes, more sense for? Well, he said that it doesn't make sense, but my question to everyone is, what do you think makes more sense? Building up Ashra, or Karabor and Bladespire, or giving us a new PvP island, or PvE island, or, giving us a few new dungeons or something like that? Honestly, I think the content is king in a game like this, and while I am, like many of you, quite disappointed about the whole thing, I do think that at this stage, it's best just to move on and, in terms of patch content, really focus on giving us new things. I especially mean, new dungeons. Okay, keep up the regular raid cycle, that doesn't need to be changed. What we need is new dungeons. And hopefully, because Blizzard won't be making any new scenarios or anything like what they did with patch 5.3, I believe, in MoP, we should be able to get more dungeons, so hopefully that extra art time is used to make new dungeons. Hey Blizzard, did you get the point? Did you get my little hidden message there? More dungeons, please. Oh dear, yeah. Look, it's just the sort of thing where shit's happen, but you know what? We're best to just make the Ashran hubs as good as they possibly can be and move on. It's, unfortunate situation, but it's one of those things where Blizzard just needs to make the best of it, and I think that doubling down on Ashran is the way to make the best of it. Okay, next we have a question from Joshua354, who said, so far in the beta, how does story cohesion between zones pan out? Are there a plethora of story threads that carry over between zones? Are they, well, individually contained or somewhere in between? That's actually a fantastic question and a really relevant point. So one of the things that I loved about the Northrend questing was that you always had these kind of common themes of, oh look, the undead are cropping up, or oh look, the Iron Dwarf people are popping up. And, from zone to zone, you would have a bit of cohesion, but every zone would have its own thing. Like, for an example, in the Grizzly Hills, sure, you had some undead stuff, you had a little bit of, a little bit of the Iron Dwarf stuff, but then you also had the Grizzlemaw stuff. And I think most zones had that. Even, let's just say, the Borean Tundra. You had the stuff going on in Caldara, but you also had all the major undead stuff. And I really like that. So, the, important point is, what's it actually like in Warlords of Draenor? Well, first of all, the overall quest flow is that basically, you're fighting the Iron Horde. So that's your main thing that's going on in Warlords, and that is a cohesive thing that goes between every single zone. So far anyway, Shadowmoon Valley is all about the Iron Horde. Gorgrond actually is, you're kind of there because of the general Iron Horde goings on, but in reality, you don't really do too much with the Iron Horde, and you just kind of fight this separate story. Gorgrond, honestly, is definitely the weakest zone. What you end up doing, this isn't really a spoiler, but you either have the choice between fighting some plant people, or fighting, like some orcs and ogres to help out Rexar, that's Draenor Rexar, like mend one of his pets or something like that. Though I believe that the Horde actually do get to fight the Iron Horde in Gorgrond. Anyway, so moving on to Talador, that's all Iron Horde and Sargerai Shadow Council stuff, which is really awesome. In Spires of Iraq, you've got a lot of the story of the Arakoa. I think the lore buffs will absolutely love that zone. You do have a little bit of Iron Horde stuff. It all does tie back to the Iron Horde, I suppose, with you dealing with the Shattered Hand clan. In Nagrand, of course, you're dealing with the Warsong clan, so the Iron Horde is that common theme that carries over between every single zone. However, within every zone, you do have some unique storylines. And some of those storylines actually carry on to other zones. So for an example, there was a side quest that's completely optional in this place called Elador in Shadowmoon Valley, and I actually think that it was really one of the best little quest chains that was in Shadowmoon Valley. But those characters are all people that you meet again in Talador, so it's nice having a bit of cohesion there, and the more keen-eyed players are actually going to recognize some of those characters reappearing from zone to zone, and I think that really does work out well. So overall, on the sort of in-game storytelling front, I think Warlords of Draenor on the whole does a very good job. I've got some problems with the actual lore itself, but if you just want to take this, take the story of what's going on in Warlords, disregard it from all the other Warcraft lore, and just enjoy it from start to end, then I think you will definitely have a good time. The in-game storytelling has certainly ramped up, but perhaps it's not really a very ambitious story that they're telling. However, as I've said many times, I think that going for something a bit more simple has kind of helped them out because, let's be honest, Blizzard are not the best storytellers. You know, they're no Naughty Dog, they're no BioWare, they're none of that, but they seem to have done something that works for them. So, overall, there's really everything that you said in your question. You know, there's a lot of cohesion between zones, but zones also have their own individual stories as well. Though it's definitely more themed around the Iron Horde on the whole. Yeah, so if you maybe like the way that Vanilla WoW was, where every single zone was its own little sort of mini-adventure. Actually, it's funny, you know, original WoW it's basically like every single zone was its own D&D scenario, wasn't it? That said, I don't have actually any experience with D&D. I played Pathfinder once, but at least that's how I understand it. Anyway, so that's that question covered. Let's move on to the next one. This is from Shadow Pictures J, who said, what customization options would you like your garrison to have? For an example, guild-themed guards, outfitting them with armor and a certain set. Okay, so what do we currently have? Well, we currently have those little trophy thingies that, you know, show up outside of your garrison. I've also seen a few buildings which seem to have a little trophy room in them. I believe it was the inn, I'm not 100% sure, but it looked like you could have various different items there. Like, you know, when I say trophy, I mean something akin to a trophy you'd get from winning something. So maybe if you killed a raid boss, you get a little trophy in your trophy room. That seems to be there in terms of art assets anyway. You can also change your garrison guards, and this is based on factions. I think this is actually really cool. So if you are, say, exalted with Darnassus, then you could have Night Elf Sentinels in your garrison. You could have goblins, you could have gnomes, you could have whatever the hell you want, as long as you're exalted with one of those home factions. And I think you can also get, you can get Shadowpan guards if you're exalted with the Pandaren factions. I don't know if you can actually customize the individual guards or anything like that. I'd imagine that you can't, but so far that's what we currently have. In terms of what I would like, well, ultimately it would be lovely to customize our buildings a little bit more, however that just is not feasible at the minute. But I'd like things like, you know what, honestly, maybe different styles of walls, different styles of lampposts, doorbells, whatever, everything, you know? When it comes to asking what customization options I would prefer, well, honestly, the answer is the more the merrier. As many as possible, while they all still make sense, is, I think, the best way to do that. Yeah, I just think it's not enough currently. They need to do more, but we haven't heard anything, and perhaps, or we haven't heard everything, and perhaps eventually, you know, Blizzard will sort of, decide to fill us in and maybe do something a bit more interesting. That could also just come back as patch content. Okay, so finally we have a question from XSean499X, who said, do you think Zandalar will be a part of a patch or an expansion on its own? Alright, great question. So if you don't know what Zandalar is, it's basically the home of the Zandalar Trolls. Do you know where the Zandalar Trolls are? Well, they are the people who came in with patch 5.2 and started rustling things up on the Isle of Thunder. They're basically a bunch of dicks who never seem to stay dead, no matter how many times we beat them down. So, will they be a part of a patch or their own expansion? Well, they'll be neither, in my opinion. I think that Zandalar is just too large for a patch. I think there's some really cool story that could go on there, and I don't think it could be its expansion. On its own. We already have enough jokes going around about, oh yeah, it's the troll patch. Well, I mean, geez, what if every second expansion was the troll expansion? I think that would drive people mad. But Zandalar is an island. Now, what do we know about islands in Azeroth? Well, there's a great deal of them. We haven't seen all of them, and Blizzard could certainly make a South Seas expansion. It's something we've heard about so many times. So yeah, we could have a South Seas expansion that is not to do with the old god N'Zoth. Maybe it could be, to do with other things. Now, with Blizzard apparently wanting to do anyway, shorter expansions, but more of them, you could have a South Seas expansion that would then lead on to a N'Zoth expansion. Now, how would a N'Zoth expansion on its own work? I don't 100% know. I wouldn't really like it if you were under the sea all the time. But maybe they could find a way to get you into all the elemental planes, but I suppose all that stuff was actually fixed in Cataclysm. So, yeah, I don't know. I just think they could do South Seas without it all being old gods. Now, of course, one giant worry for me about doing a South Sea expansion is that it would all be monkey pirates and bullshit. I wouldn't really like that. I'd like it if they still kept an air of seriousness about it, but in terms of major things, well, you've got the Kingdom of Kulturas. That's a human kingdom. They're the marine people with the seas and the boats and things like that. That's where Jaina comes from, I believe. So there's Kulturas. There is Undermine, which is the giant steam wheel cartel city / island place, which is pretty cool. There's also Zandalar itself, which is of course a giant fat control empire, which I think would be pretty fun to gallivant around the place. And I'd suppose really they could come up with as many islands and things as they really wanted to. It could be interesting having maybe a cluster of 5 different islands and maybe 7 or 8 zones in the expansion. So you could have maybe a large island and then a few small ones, a little bit like how some of the real world kind of island countries work. I think that would be really awesome, actually, and they could do a lot of fun stuff, and the difference, the kind of physical split between islands could be interesting from a storytelling perspective. So yeah, perhaps the main island has got the big main story going on, but you could have some cool things going on in the little side islands. I'd really love stuff like that. Maybe they could give us boats to use and, general fun things like that. Honestly, a South Seas expansion sort of video discussion topic thingy is something that I've been planning to do for ages, so if the beta does calm down soon enough, I'll probably end up doing that. However, I do have another really fun discussion video to come out before that. But yes, I think we will see Zandalar. I think it will be a part of an expansion that involves the South Seas, because, well, that would just make a great deal of sense, I suppose. Though, speaking of sense, Kulturas is apparently near, Tul Barad, is it not? Which means that it would kind of be South Seas and the bits in the middle that we forgot, which honestly is not a very catchy name or a sort of code name for an expansion, so I'm not too sure how they'd exactly do that. Still though, I'd like to see all that stuff. And yeah, that's basically it for this video. So again, sorry for the kind of one video a day sort of strange nature of things for the last while. Just, setting up a new house, traveling about the place, and all that, well, I would say fun, but really it's not fun at all. I just want to work. I want to sit down and make videos and relax, but I can't. Real life's getting in the way. Ugh. But yeah, eventually real life will not be in the way, and I'll have a badass new room, and it should be a lot of fun. But yeah, anyway, that's basically it for this video. So if you've got any of your own questions, please leave them down in the comments of this video. I'll add them to my delicious big Q&A document. And to everyone who's left questions in the last few videos, don't worry, I still have them. Just in general, I like to kind of format these Q&A videos so that there's 1 or 2 big topics and then maybe a few small topics, and I don't know, I just like it so they make sense. So don't worry, I'll squeeze your questions in somewhere. Anyway, that's enough rambling for me. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, favorite, and do all those lovely things, and I'll see you next time.